Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the second edition of the Zelaya Show March Madness special here in 2022. I'm joined by my small ball lineup, Spencer Pierce, Matt Zumbolo, Jacob Morris, and Jack Tobin, here to discuss all the headlines ahead of March Madness, which gets going in just a couple days. But first, guys, I need to get your initial reactions on when the bracket was released yesterday on Selection Sunday. Matt, I want to start with you. What surprised you? What teams didn't get in that you thought were going to get in? What were your first thoughts on the bracket being released yesterday?
I like the bracket a lot. Personally, I think it's one of the most competitive brackets that we've had in the last few years. One thing to think about a little bit is the play-in games, actually. I think Rutgers Notre Dame is one that I was a little surprised that both teams got put into a play-in situation when, I think either one of them could have gotten a bid or also just not gotten in. So that should be a good play-in game. And the same thing with Wyoming, Indiana. I thought that game was is going to be pretty interesting as well. But in general, it's a pretty good bracket, and I'm really excited for what to come this week.
Jack, what about you?
The Michigan Wolverines being seeded over the Indiana Hoosiers surprised me a lot. I really thought that 8-9 game was to get into the tournament. And when I saw Michigan get matched up against Colorado State, I was pretty surprised, but also pretty happy because one of my best friends from high school goes there, and I am going to be picking them over Colorado State.
J-Mo?
Honestly, it was the Michigan being seated where they were at 17 and 14 was a little bit questionable, especially after losing to IU, to echo Jack's point. But also, I thought A&M not getting in was a travesty. I'm a big Notre Dame guy, but if you compare Texas A&M and Notre Dame, especially with the run A&M made in the SEC tournament, that's when I think it gets a bit questionable, especially when you start looking at the wins A&M had down the stretch, and for them not to make it in, I don't really know what the point of the SEC tournament is if somebody makes a run through the entire tournament and beats every single top team in the SEC tournament and then gets bounced in the championship game in a 5-point loss and doesn't make it. That was surprising to me. But other than that, I'm with Matt. I thought it was a decent bracket overall.
And what about you, Spencer?
I'm just going to echo what everyone else said. I think the seeding was an absolute mess this year. Tennessee should not be a 3 seed after winning what people think is the most competitive conference in the entire country. You look at teams like Iowa as a 5 seed who just won the Big Ten, who is another really competitive conference, just kind of crazy. And then, as Jack was saying, Michigan being an 11 seed, let alone getting into the tournament, is shocking. So we'll obviously talk about that a little more, but not a big fan of the seeding this year.
The thing that surprised me most was with how ugly the ACC was this year, they still were able to get 5 teams into the tournament. And that's because they're a Power 5 school. But a couple teams were a bit lower than I thought. I think Virginia Tech should have been a single-digit seed opposed to being an 11. And also Notre Dame, I don't think they should be playing in a first 4 game. I think they should have just gotten into the tournament with how strong of a regular season they had. But hey, we're not the bracketologists here. We're just analyzing what happens after the bracket. Let's get a bit deeper, though, starting in the West region, where the number 1 overall seed Gonzaga is there. The 2 seed is Duke. Spencer, starting with you on this one, what are your first thoughts on the West region?
I don't know. This one's pretty tough. We can talk about Gonzaga a little bit, but where my main focus lies is Duke, right? And so this is Coach K's last run, blah, blah, blah. They have to sell tickets, so they're going to put them up against Michigan State. That's what everyone's saying. Who said Michigan State's going to get past Davidson? Right? And even if they do, and Duke beats them, then this Texas Tech team is a pick that many people have them in at least the Elite 8, maybe even the Final 4. So, kind of getting away from the number 1 overall seed Gonzaga, it could get a little messy. And Nick, our home state UConn, people are picking them to cruise, but I don't know.
Not going to be easy for them.
I don't think so.
What about you, J-Mo?
I would echo the same thing. I had to go back to Spencer. You were the one who said, right, that Tennessee should have been that's where Tennessee should be the 2 in this, if you're doing it just based on what I think resumes should be. But you have Duke in there. It's like you said, you maybe get Duke, Michigan State lined up. And what's interesting is you just look down the entire West region. There's just a lot of dangerous teams there, which you can say about almost every region. But it's not going to be a cakewalk for Gonzaga to get there. Like, you even look at Alabama, who's 19-13 and has had their fair share of struggles down, the stretch. But you look at what they did, at least in the non-con and stuff like that. Like, teams are dangerous in this region, and it should be interesting. And it's not going to be a cakewalk for Gonzaga or Duke.
What about you, Jack?
I'm going to kind of disagree there. I think Gonzaga rolls right to the Elite Eight. They'll definitely face some trouble there when they play most likely Texas Tech or Duke, but I don't think I see Boise State or Memphis as a real threat to beat them in a full March Madness game. Memphis could be up at the half or get hot early, but they're not going to beat Mark Few the whole game. And then I don't know if Arkansas is even going to be there. I can't see UConn beating Gonzaga this year. I think they're going to run to the Elite Eight, and then potentially that could help them be a little less beat up than the Duke, Texas Tech, the Alabama, Michigan State matchups down below. I think by the time they get to the Elite Eight, Gonzaga will still be fresh and ready to go, and I'd like them going to the Final Four from this region.
Matt?
I kind of just have to echo what everybody else is saying. I mean, there's a lot of really strong teams in here. One team that nobody has mentioned yet, which I'm a little surprised, is Vermont. They obviously are a 13th seed. They have a matchup against Arkansas, who's a good team. But I'm a big fan of Vermont. I think that that's an upset we can keep our eye on, I think.
Yeah, I think everyone kind of got the idea around that. This is a region that can see some upsets. I mean, Memphis, they looked really good just a couple weeks ago against Houston, beating them by 20 plus points. There's a team like Alabama that beat Gonzaga earlier in this season. Michigan State, if they can get the right strides going, they're a team that can be really dangerous. So across the board, I think 1 through 16, this is going to be a really interesting region to watch. But let's look at the other side now. Facing the West, it's the South Division, the region's centered around the 1 seed, Arizona. Starting with you, Matt, again, in the South, what's going on in this South region?
The South region's another interesting one. I mean, like they all are, but Arizona, it's really hard for me to look at Arizona and see them really losing to anyone in this region, except for maybe Villanova. I think Villanova is really good and has been. I don't think you can say slept on, but I think that they've got a really good chance to run it. But that's not even it. There's Tennessee, you've got Illinois, Houston, and Loyola Chicago. I mean, we all know what happened in 2018 when Loyola Chicago made an outstanding run. They made the tournament last year too. I could see them making a little bit of a run this year too.
Tobin?
This is the only region where on my bracket I have the Sweet 16 being 1, 2, 3, 4. I do like potentially. I'm a little torn on the UAB Houston game, but I think when it's all said and done, I think Loyola Chicago will win round 1, potentially Michigan, but I don't see those teams then going on to beating Tennessee, Villanova. I don't see Seton Hall or TCU giving Arizona a run. I think this is the 1, 2, 3, 4 after the first round, couple of upsets, but chalk for Sweet 16 and beyond. I do see Villanova, Arizona facing the Elite Eight.
J-Mo?
Yeah, I would just continue to echo what everybody said. I think it's an interesting region from a lot of what Jack just said. I think you'll probably see 1, 2, 3, 4, but I think Tennessee, Villanova, if we get that game in the Sweet 16, would be really entertaining. Where I would push back on Zumbo would be, I think Illinois or a team even like Houston, if they get hot, 100% has the capability to beat Arizona. I think back to the game that Illinois and Arizona played in the non-con. It was like 10 games into the season, and Illinois was up at halftime, and Illinois or Arizona came back, outscored them in the second half. And I don't know, I think Illinois with their pair of guards as well as Kofi Coburn down low, obviously I think they could provide problems for a lot of teams. And spoiler alert, we're gonna see Illinois in the Final Four, so I'm in my Final Four, so I'm biased there a bit. But I think it'll be a really fun region, and I honestly, you can't ever predict what you're gonna see in the Sweet 16, but I do think Tennessee Villanova would be a ton of fun, and I hope we get that game.
And Spencer?
I don't know. I'm kind of chalk on this region. What Jack was saying about the 1, 2, 3, 4, I think it's completely possible, but you look at a team like Loyola Chicago, and I know it's the same story every year, but it's true. Ohio State's on the wrong end of the end of the season. They were 1-4 to end their season, so obviously you want to get a little hotter before that. And whichever team's playing the best ball, that's who you're scared to go against. Listen, shout out to my dad a few weeks ago, said Tennessee's making the Final Four no matter what region bracket they're in. I didn't believe him. It looks pretty convincing now, but I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think that this bracket is going to be the most entertaining of the four.
It looks very convincing after Tennessee just won the SEC, and the 4 and 5 seeds, that's Houston and Illinois. They're both teams that have been in the top 10, top 5 for a lot of this season. And as 4 and 5 seeds, it makes it really difficult for a team like Arizona to maybe get a bit far, get to the Elite Eight, potentially the Final Four. It should be interesting, though, an Elite Eight matchup between Villanova and Arizona. Tommy Lloyd, his first season against a guy like Jay Wright, who has all the experience in the world. Let's transition now to the East region. I want to focus solely with Jack Tobin and Jacob Morris here, because Purdue is in this region, guys. So Jamie, I want to start with you here in the East. What surprises you in the 1 seed Baylor leading this East region?
I wouldn't say anything surprises me. I would say that I was devastated when I saw this draw for Purdue, because Purdue has looked anything but convincing down the stretch, and you run into a situation where you have Baylor and Kentucky as the 1 and 2, which would be obviously no fun for my Purdue Boilermakers to go up against. But then to get UCLA as the 4 as well as potentially an upset-minded Virginia Tech team in the second round as well. Looking at it strictly from the Purdue perspective, I was devastated. I don't see a huge. I don't see it in the realm of possibility for the Boilers, especially given how they're the perfect recipe for a March Madness upset. That being said, I'll still support them through and pretend like it's going to happen for the first time since the 80s.
Jack, what do you notice from the East region?
I think this is going to be the madness corner. This will be the one where I really like Murray State. I think 30-2, Coach Matt McMahon's play has been unbelievable this season. They know how to win. I don't trust Baylor. I'm a true believer in the past champion curse. If you look at the last few years, it's very rare a team makes the Elite Eight or even Sweet 16 some years after winning the championship. And I really think UCLA is going to turn it on this time of the year. I think with Baylor have only won 1 game in the month of March is really going to hurt them now that they haven't been playing much recently. I just don't trust Kentucky this year. I've fallen for the Kentucky trap many a times, and they have not made the Final Four in a long time. So I'm going to lean UCLA coming out of this region.
I'm surprised more people aren't talking about North Carolina. I know they lost to Virginia Tech in the ACC semifinals. But hey, this is against a Baylor team that's been a bit up and down all season. North Carolina, they're riding hot. If they can get to the second round, that could potentially be an 8-1 matchup that we could see an upset there. Let's go to the last region now, the Midwest, where our fellow Jayhawks are the 1 seed leading that region. Spencer, I need to start with you. What are your thoughts on this Midwest region led by your Kansas Jayhawks?
Okay, well, seeing as to how Joe Lunardi had Kansas as a 1 and then Kentucky as a 2, Villanova as a 3, I'm fine with it. I think that whoever comes out of the San Diego State Creighton game is going to be really interesting, because if it is Creighton, I really wouldn't be surprised to see Kansas lose. But if it's San Diego State, I think they'll be able to run through them. Iowa as a 5 seed, I know that that's a really popular championship pick because they're playing their best ball right now. But don't sleep on the Fighting Trey Redfields. Richmond Spiders, and it's a perfect 5-12 matchup. Everything is really making out for an upset there. As we go down, Providence, South Dakota State. Providence has been really hot, but South Dakota State has some really lethal scores. I think they might be able to pull out an upset. Thank God USC is on the opposite side of the bracket. I saw that and I just laughed. Like that last year was the most pain I've been in so long. It was one of those games where you're just numb, right? And then Auburn as a 2 seed. And that's where I would put Tennessee. I know J-Mo was saying put Tennessee where Duke is, but I would honestly put them instead of Auburn. I think that down the stretch, they were the better team. I have a lot of false hope. It happens every year. There's really nothing to say about it. I'm excited, but I'm weary, especially with Creighton looming, and then Iowa afterwards.
Spencer, I would not be opposed to a USC Kansas Elite Eight matchup. Honestly, I think
I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you.
To run it
I would
back
be
one time.
heavily opposed.
Matt, wrap us up here. What are your thoughts on the Midwest region?
I personally think that this is the most stacked region out of all of the four. Spencer kind of put it perfectly, talking about Iowa. They might be the hottest team in the country right now. Fresh off of a Big Ten championship, they are playing their best ball, coming in as a 5 seed. Yeah, good point with Richmond. But they've got teams like Providence who they're good, but I think Iowa right now is probably a little bit better. And a team, Spencer, that you didn't mention, Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin is highly underrated. Johnny Davis, one of the best players in the country. I think they can make a run. It looks tough for the Jayhawks, to say the least, as a 1 seed.
Well, it is tough. And both you and Spencer agree that the Kansas Jayhawks are going to have the toughest time out of all the 1-seeded teams in this tournament. Why is that, guys? Why does Kansas have the toughest road to get to the Final Four out of the 4 1 seeds, starting with you, Matt?
I mean, just kind of to echo what I was saying, I just think it's such a stacked region. I mean, the Creighton San Diego State matchup is interesting. I agree with what Spencer said a few minutes ago. If San Diego State comes out, Kansas probably can handle San Diego State pretty easily. Creighton, however, they're playing really good basketball right now. I think they've got a really good chance to put down Kansas. But if Kansas wins that 1 versus 8 or 9 game, they either get Providence or Iowa, who are both also really good teams. Like I said, Iowa, one of the hottest teams in the country. Providence has been good all year. They got to then get through them to then get to one of Wisconsin or Auburn or a USC, which I know Spencer would not like, or even a Miami team who they're not great, but they've proven that they can win games down the stretch, and Wisconsin as well. I'm very interested to see what happens to Kansas, and I don't think that they're going to make it as far as you expect a 1 seed to make it.
And on the other side of that Midwest bracket is the East, where Jacob and Jack, you guys agree that you think Baylor is the 1 seed in the most trouble. Jack, why is that? Why is Baylor going to struggle to get to the Final Four on their side?
I look at potential matchups just through the round of 32 and the Sweet 16, and North Carolina, that's a tough team to play with all the 5-star talent they always just have, and they have some senior leadership as well this year. St. Mary's, UCLA, those teams are old, experienced, have proven they can beat teams like Gonzaga, compete with teams like Gonzaga, and just beat anybody in the country. And they have senior leadership. They don't turn the ball over that much. They have some experienced players in the championship team, but they don't have the Jared Butler, the distributor. They're still finding themselves a little bit, I think, and I do not see them getting past the Sweet 16. I almost took UNC over them, but I thought that was a little too greedy, but I do have UCLA knocking them out in the Sweet 16.
I'm personally going to be back and forth on that UNC Baylor matchup because that's really intriguing to me. Now let's get to the best non-Power 5 school in this tournament. We're going to exclude Gonzaga out of the picture because they're obviously the number 1 team. There's no question about that. Starting with you, JMO, who is the best non-Power 5 school in the field of 68?
Well, Nick, I put down Gonzaga, and looking at our Google Doc, I see that you erased it for me. So I'll go with my second choice, and that's Houston. I think Houston has proven all year long that they're a team that can really hang with just about anybody in the country. And there's a reason, I'm not the biggest net ranking guy on planet Earth, but there's a reason that net ranking loves them. They've been in the top 10 for a lot of the year. And I think that just top to bottom, they have a case to cause real issues, and to have them as not a 3, 2, or 1 seed and to be up in the 5 range, it'll cause a lot of interesting matchups. And I personally am a Houston guy if you, Nick, won't give me Gonzaga in terms of non-Power 5.
I just think we can all agree that Gonzaga would be the best team out of the non-Power 5. Is that true or no?
I don't know. Murray State's got a real case this year.
I guess. Spencer, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with St. Mary's, Gonzaga's counterpart that they can't seem to figure out until just about the last 5 minutes of every game. I really like St. Mary's. I think it's a really good spot for them. Unfortunately, 2 teams that my heart loves, Wyoming and Indiana, are in contention to play them. It's going to be difficult for them, but I do think that Jacob was just talking about the net rankings, right? St. Mary's finds themselves at 19. 20 is Arkansas, 21 Murray State, 22 San Francisco, 23 Loyola Chicago, 24, Matt, my ears perk up, Wisconsin, right? So St. Mary's, they are cursed by being in the WCC, just like Gonzaga is. But this is a team that has proved to be worthy time and time again. And just because they don't play anyone in their schedule doesn't mean that they're not able to beat other teams that are better than them.
Jack, what about you?
I'm all over the Murray State Racers as the best non-power 5 team besides Gonzaga. 30-2. That speaks for itself. They know how to win. They have 2 amazing scorers with Tevin Brown and KJ Williams. KJ Williams also puts up 9 rebounds a game. This team shoots 35% from 3, which isn't flashy, but they play fast. They get a lot of possessions. They know how to win. They're not afraid to win. And I like where they are with Kentucky. I think Kentucky is just younger, less experienced. And I really think that this team, I've heard rumors and people talking online that this is a better team than the team that had John Morant. So I really trust the Murray State Racers to go on a little run.
Matt, what about you?
I'm gonna have to go with Memphis. I don't want to be the guy that picks any of the same teams. So I look out Memphis. I think, look at Nick, you pointed it out earlier. They played really well lately, and a big 20-point win against Houston a week and a half ago or so. They've got a good matchup, I think, against Boise State. I think they're a team to look out for, definitely.
They're not beating Boise State.
Are you a big Imani Bates guy, Matt?
He's pretty good. Jalen Duren as well.
Let's run through this real quick. Which double-digit seed can make the longest run in the NCAA tournament? We were battling back and forth about the situation Virginia Tech was in. They're an 11 seed. I'll just clarify that for everybody out there. But Matt, starting with you, which double-digit seed do you think could make the biggest run towards maybe the Sweet 16 or possibly the Elite Eight?
Team I'm going to have to go with is whichever team comes out of the Wyoming-Indiana play-in game. I think that the team comes out. Spencer's upset because he just said that St. Mary's is the best non-power 5 team. But Wyoming or Indiana, either of these teams come out, I think they are going to put it to St. Mary's, knock them out. Then they're going to get a game against UCLA most likely, which I think they could win that one too. I don't think they will, but I think that they could. Either one of those teams.
What about you, Spencer?
All right. Well, by default, my answer has to be a little bit better because Matt's longest run was quite literally 1 game. Actually, 2 games if you count the play-in. Matt's picking a play-in team. My answer is the UVM Catamounts. They won their conference championship by 39 points. They won the game before that by 32 points. This is a team that, these aren't the days of Anthony Lamb anymore, but they are so efficient. They're so good at shooting the 3, interior defense, all that jazz, right? And you look at just their path. Arkansas is a very beatable team. Then you would be playing the UConn New Mexico State, which is kind of a toss-up game. So that's 2 rounds immediately. And then they're playing the winner of Gonzaga and Boise State Memphis. So by longest run, we might see UVM in the Elite Eight. So by default, I think that kind of has to beat a play-in team. But I do like the Murray State talk.
Spencer, we haven't got to winners yet, but if Vermont gets to the Elite Eight, I'll pay you whatever we end up winning on that winner segment. All right.
Vermont's so not making
pennies of dollars that ends up being. J-Mo, which double-digit seed's going to make the longest run here?
I'm going to make Spencer angry, and I'm going to take it one step up from what Zumbo did, and it's going to be Indiana, which breaks my heart as a Purdue fan because Indiana is, there's nothing good about that school, I have to tell you. But I think based on what we saw in the Big Ten tournament, just this team has an ability to create a lot of matchups that are issues for other teams. And I like Virginia Tech as another pick, but I think Indiana is just another example of a team that's hot at the right time. And Trace Jackson Davis will give anybody issues that Indiana runs up against. And I like the Hoosiers as a potential upset pick, as much as it pains me to say.
We saw Trace be a monster on the Carrier Dome floor back in November. He was a beast to reckon with. Yeah, for me, it's Iowa State. And this is a bit of answer that I was up in the air about which double-digit seed might make it. I'm going with Iowa State. This is a team that last year was 2-22. That's Oregon State 2022 type of vibes right there. But we've got Iowa State. I think this is a really good defensive team. Isaiah Brockington averaging 17-9 on the season. He can really take over at any time when you need him to. So Iowa State's a team that I think can win a couple games, get a bit deep, maybe get to that Wisconsin Sweet 16 matchup and make a run. But after a quick break, I spoke with Georgia State center Joe Jones III ahead of their matchup against number 1 seed Gonzaga. That and more after the break. Welcome back into the Zelaya show, March Madness special, and I'm now very pleased to be joined by a very special guest, Joe Jones, Georgia State center, ahead of their matchup against number 1 seeded Gonzaga. Joe, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. You're the first guest we've had on the March Madness special, so it's awesome to have you.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Now, I know, Joe, you've been sidelined for a while now dealing with an injury, but for those who maybe haven't tuned into Georgia State basketball all season long, you're at all the games, you're all at the practices, who is this Sun Belt champion team that will be facing Gonzaga in the first round of March Madness?
I think we a slept-on team. I do. I would say that. I say we a slept-on team because I think we could be how our team is. Like, if you come within our team, we more than a team. Like, we really a family. Like, and that comes back to what you said about me being on the sideline. Like, I still support them guys. Like, even though I'm not playing and I might be going through things in my personal life and me not playing for 2 years straight, I still make sure, like, I still be bringing energy to the weight room, practice, and the game. So that's what I mean by what I said.
How tough is it to be on the sideline and not playing on the court? Because I know you would love to be on the floor with your guys, especially when March rolls around. How tough is that for you?
It's tough. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's tough. But it's like, that's the path I'm on. Like, my situation, I can't, that's something I can't control. Injury, then when I was coming back, found out I had to have surgery, then out another 6 months. So that's 2 years in a row. So I'm trying to come back better. That's all I can do. So I'm gonna control what I can control. But with that situation, I really use that to build me. Build me.
For those who may not know, your older brother is a former number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft, Greg Oden, who was selected back in 2007 by the Portland Trail Blazers. What's your relationship like with him, and how has he developed you into the type of basketball player that you are today?
I mean, we got a all right relationship, good relationship. It could always be better, but a lot of that is personal, family things, But he was definitely he gave me a couple tips that I can't say the secrets though. Hold on, no for me. But he gave me some advice just by living and just to keep going, how to better myself, and especially with this situation. Watch film. He gave me that advice too. Watch a lot of film, and just to keep moving on. Life's not gonna stop. So
Who wins one-on-one? I know you guys have had to have that matchup at least once in your lifetime between Greg Oden and Joe Jones.
But who win that matchup? Of course, since I'm a competitor first. Well, that's my brother first. Don't get me wrong, but I'm gonna say me, of course. But
I like all the confidence. So Joe 1, Greg 0. I'm getting at here.
Man, let's get to it.
Going back to your Georgia State team, it's been a very wavy season for you guys. I mean, going back to January, it was a ton of losses. And then February turned, and it was all W's all of a sudden. What changed for this team that made them realize, hey, we can go dancing in March. It is possible for Georgia State to be in the field of 68.
Really, we just really coming into ourselves, tell you the truth. And that's goes back to what I said in my first comment, as on we had slept on team. Because, like, even comments like that, we knew it was going to happen. We knew that green light was going to turn on. And we went through a lot of stuff this year, like inter-team-wise, and even with COVID and a lot. And I'm not saying we the only ones, but we actually been through a lot. So we really, we just stayed stayed and build it within the team, tell you the truth, and just stayed down to ourselves. Yeah. We knew, and our coaches engraved in us that the green light was going to come on. So we just kept going with all the losses. I didn't even know we was on the 10-game winning streak until the other day. I'm like, it been 10? But that comes with it, though. We got to take, and something I say a lot, we got to take the losses just like the wins. So.
Yes, Joe, you guys are hot right now. The Georgia State Panthers are very hot coming into the tournament. 10 straight wins, but it's a tough matchup against Gonzaga, like I mentioned earlier. What are the team goals for March Madness this year?
We're going to be ourselves. Do what we got to do. You know, we know we like the underdogs, once again, the sleepers. But we know ourselves, this is our team. And we know we're going to always go down. If we go down, we're going to fight. So.
Hey, it was only a few years back that you guys, as a 14 seed, upset number 3 Baylor to make it onto the first round. So, hey, maybe you can change the narrative. Maybe you can be the second 16 seed to upset a 1.
We competitive just like them.
Hey, Joe, I appreciate you taking the time to talk today. Best of luck to you and the rest of the Panthers this week against Gonzaga. Good luck with everything.
No problem. Thank you.
And after the break, we did a March Madness starting 5 draft. All 5 of us, we picked our top 5 lineup to go at it against one another, and you'll decide who the best team is out of everyone. Plus, we help you win a little money and give our Final Four and championship picks. The Nick Zelaya Show March Madness special when we come back. Welcome everybody back to the March Madness special. Now we've got a little fun game we had going on, a draft. We did a starting 5 draft, picking our top 5 players in March Madness. We build a team, see who has the best team, and you'll vote on Twitter to find out later on who's actually got the best team, but we'll figure that out later on. Spencer, I want to start with you here. We did the draft. You had the 4th pick out of 5 of us. We had a snake draft though, so you had an early pick in the 2nd round. Who is your starting 5 that you think could beat the other 4 teams that we all drafted?
All right. Well, I mean, you brought it up for me. I had the 4th pick and still chose the best player in all of college basketball, that being Johnny Davis. He will win the Wooden Award. And speaking of the Wooden Award, 4 of the 5 players on my team, no, they're not all from the Big Ten, even though, yes, they are. They're all Wooden Award finalists. My team, I was joking beforehand about having 5 centers. This team is ginormous. So we're going to run Johnny Davis at the 1. Next, we're going to run Christian Brown. He was my second to last pick, but we're going to put him at the 2. He's got some nice ball handling. He can shoot the 3 a little bit. We're putting Keegan Murray at the 3. Now, I know what you're thinking. Surely this team can't get bigger. EJ Liddell and Kofi Coburn round out the 4 and the 5. Have fun getting a rebound on my team. The only thing I worry about a little bit is the ball handling skills. If one of your team puts a full court press on mine, shout out Liam Griffin, my team might collapse and die, similar to what Frank Anselm does in the corner every once in a while. My team will outskill yours, except for the dribbling part. I digress. Thank you.
Spencer, my team is built to beat your team. And that's because, unlike you, I picked by position and actually followed the prompt of creating a starting 5 rather than taking 5 centers.
I was told it was whatever I wanted it to be. This is my picture. Let me paint it.
So I have I picked Jaden Ivey, then Chet Holmgren, Drew Timme, James Akinjo, and then David Roddy, who I was getting some hate by certain members in the break about my David Roddy pick. I'll expand on the David Roddy pick, okay? At the 1, we've got James Akinjo, who's just Fantastic. All first team, Big 12 for Baylor. He's a true point guard because, again, Spencer, I pick by position. I think about, my team having, a real ball handler, et cetera, et cetera. Then Jaden Ivey at the 2, my guy David Roddy at the 3, Timmy at the 4, and Holmgren at the 5. So my team can do everything. All right, a little bit of everything. We have shooting out the wazoo. We got ball handling out the wazoo. We can defend your best guard. We can defend your best big man. We got Holmgren averaging 3 blocks per game, locking down from the 5 spot. And then David Roddy, who again was being insulted by members in this chat. Okay, he comes in Mountain West Player of the Year from Colorado State, averaging 19 a game. But more important than that, he shoots 45% plus from 3. So he stretches the floor. When Jaden Ivey attacks the hoop, David Roddy's going to be there. This team is built to beat Spencer's team and it's built to beat the rest of your guys' teams as well. It's an all-time starting 5, believe it.
So I also drafted based on position and try to make a starting 5. I'm going to go Ty Washington at the 1. I'm going to go Kevin Brown at the 2, the Murray State guard. I'm going to go Paulo Banchero playing 3. Jabari Smith playing 4, stretch 4, shoots 43% from 3, and probably the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. I'm going the big man from Arizona, Christian Koloko, is having a great season, both defensively and offensively, and this team is very well-rounded. I think every player I have can run with any of these teams, and at the same time, I have Koloko down low for the interior defense, and then I have stretch 4, and I guess you could even say stretch 3, Paulo Banchero, who can kind of do it all. So I believe this team could win the battle of these 5.
All right, so I'm just listening to all these teams, and I'm just sitting here laughing. Spencer's trying to laugh at me the whole time we started because I had the pick before him, and I passed on Johnny Davis for his favorite player in college basketball, Ochai Agbaji. I got Colin Gillespie, Trace Jackson Davis, Walker Kessler, and the scoring leader in the NCAA in Peter Kiss of Bryant. This team is unbeatable. We're going to go Colin Gillespie at the 1, Peter Kiss at the 2, Ochai at the 3, TJD at the 4, and Walker Kessler at the 5. I mean, up and down, we've got scoring. And then let's get to the defense. Walker Kessler had a triple-double in one game with blocks. Points, rebounds, blocks. Good luck, guys. I don't even know what else to say.
All right. I'm going to stop the debating and just put my team out there because we know I'm going 4-0 in this, whether you call me GM Nick, AD Nick. We're going positionless out here on the floor. And if your team isn't going to score 90 points on me, good luck because I've got scores across the board. First off, Oscar Tshiebwe. Good luck getting a rebound on Oscar Tshiebwe. That man's a monster in the paint. I've got shooters now. I've got AJ Griffin from Duke. He's going to stretch it from deep. Brady Manick. Good luck guarding that guy. If you leave him a tiny bit of space on the three-point line, he's going to make you pay. Johnny Juzang, he's a scorer. I got him in the 4th round. I don't know why any of you guys forgot about Johnny Juzang because after all, he was in the Final Four last year. He's one of the best players in the country. His sister goes to Syracuse University. It's all very good. And then finally, Benedict Mathurin, because that was, I'll be honest, I had a little trouble picking Benedict Mathurin. There was a bit of confusion during the draft between me and Team Zumbolo, but hey, we got Mathurin in the 1st round because he is the start of the 2nd round because he's a 2nd round type of talent. He doesn't deserve to drop any lower than that. Sorry, Matt. I had to take Benedict from you because he's my starting guard. So I've got defense and I've got shooting on my roster, and it's interesting. Good luck defending this team. But now we need to win some money. That was all for fun, that draft part, but money, that's important to all of us. It's important to everyone that follows along college basketball. We have some intense bettors a part of this show this year. So let's get into some winners. We're each going to pick 2 games, pick 2 spreads that intrigue us the most in these 1st round matchups. We're going to squish it all together, a 10-leg parlay, throw $100 on it and see how many bands we can possibly make from these games. Matt, I want to start with you here because you love your betting. No doubt about that. Give me 2 spreads that you're going for the 1st round games.
All right. So it took me a little bit. I mean, I was looking at all these different lines that are out already. They're interesting, definitely, to say the least. There's some interesting lines everywhere. My first one is going to be in an 8-9 matchup. Creighton versus San Diego State. I'm going to take Creighton plus 2.5 points. I think they're my most confident upset pick in the entire tournament this year. They're hot. I mean, last year we saw SDSU struggles firsthand when they lost to Syracuse in the tournament. I think that Creighton is a team to watch out for a few rounds in the tournament, and I think plus 2.5, that's not even fair. I would almost have made them a favorite in this game. And then my other pick this is a 10-7 matchup, and the favorite is the 10. Loyola Chicago -1.5 against Ohio State. I mean, I talked about Loyola Chicago a little bit earlier. They're one of the best stories in college basketball. They're hot. They're a good team. Sister Jean's bringing them to the promised land. They're covering 1.5. My work here is done.
Spencer.
All right. Well, the first thing I want to say really quickly is I just caught a stray when Matt just said Creighton can make a few round run, considering Creighton has to play Kansas in the second round. Okay. Anyway, my first pick is going to be Miami +1.5. Miami absolutely tore up the ACC this year. Obviously, it wasn't as good as it was in years past, but who really cares about that? Miami's also playing my sworn enemy, USC. I think they're just as big. I think they're quicker than them. And I really think that having them as a 10 seed against a 7 is a little bit criminal. So I'll take the points where I can get them. And then my second pick is going to be, Murray State -1. We've talked about them so much. And I think that this is going to be a pick that, a lot of people are going to be on. The public is probably going to be anywhere from like 85 to 93% on the Racers -1. San Francisco is a really sneaky team, Nick. I know you're pretty high on them, but I just think
Dons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm a little nervous to go against them, but I do think that this is a really good spot for them. I was kind of expecting them to get within the 3 or 4 point region. So just 1 point is basically a pick 'em at that point. So, take the point, take the money line, tell them I sent you. Unless you lose, and then tell them Jacob sent you.
Jack?
I'm going with Virginia Tech +1 to start. This is as much a Virginia Tech pick as an anti-Texas pick. We've seen Virginia Tech. We've talked about them on the show. ACC champion. They're on fire right now. But Texas is ice cold right now. They've lost 3 straight games. And the 4th game ago, they beat 4 conference win West Virginia by 1 point. They got, honestly, I'd say embarrassed losing to TCU in the first, in the Elite 8 of the Big 12 tournament. So I really think Virginia Tech's going to keep the heat up, keep running, keep scoring. They're going to win. I really think Texas has, ever since they got swept by Texas Tech, Frank Beard, this whole team's been completely out of it. They're ice cold right now, and I expect them to lose round 1. Definitely take Virginia Tech, and you might as well just take the +1. I'm also all over Vermont, and we've been talking about Vermont. They've won the last 2 games by over 70 points total, but just as much as they've been playing great, Arkansas has kind of hit a lull in their season. They lost to Texas A&M by 18 in the Elite 8 of the Final 4 of the SEC tournament. That's definitely a tough loss. They lost to Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. They only have 1 win in the last week because they got cold when they lost to Texas A&M. 18 points to them 18 points lost to Texas A&M is brutal. And Vermont, top 10 defense in the country, top 5 in assist to turnover ratio. They're not going to lose by more than 5 points if they do lose.
JMO, wrap us up.
I'll wrap you up with an ironclad lock right here. Okay. And that's like, listen, when you're picking spreads, when you're betting, all right, when you're placing your hard-earned money on the table, what you got to do is you got to bet what you know. And what I know is the Purdue Boilermakers. You might say, all right, so we're hammering Purdue -16.5 here. No, we're taking Yale hardcore +16.5 because this Purdue team, over the past month and a half, I can tell you firsthand, can't close out anybody. It could be a D3 opponent. It could be a D2 opponent, let alone a Yale team that Jack pointed out in a break can shoot the 3 really well. And it's just, I'm a big Ivy League team. You just got to use the Ivy League bias for no reason other than the fact that they won the Ivy and come from the Ivy League. So take Yale 16.5 +16.5. It's +15.5 at other places that I looked as well on ESPN. It's at +15.5 right now. But Purdue can't close out anybody. Expect Yale to be in that game down the stretch. My other one is North Carolina -3. We've talked a little bit about how North Carolina could create issues for Baylor. I think North Carolina goes ahead and does beat Baylor, but that's a whole other story. I think North Carolina, with their size inside, playing Marquette in an 8-9 matchup, I think -3 is plenty in terms of I would hammer the Tar Heels in this regard. I think they'll take care of business against Marquette. Baylor's a bit of a different story, but I think 3 points is too small of a margin for the Tar Heels. I would take North Carolina -3.
I love that -3, JMO. That's one of my favorite spreads out there right now for the first round. For me personally, I talked a bit about Iowa State, and I think they'll win. I think they'll cover +4. You know, this is a team that is really good defensively. They can score the ball with Brockington. It's a team that can really cause some trouble for LSU, who's been very up and down all season. And I've also got Michigan -2.5. This is an 11 seed. That's a favorite against Colorado State. I know you love some David Roddy, JMO, but I think Michigan with Hunter Dickinson, this is a really good team. When they're on their A game, they can cause a ton of trouble, not just for Colorado State, but as they get deeper into the tournament. So give me Michigan -2.5. I'm going to do all the addition and the math later on to figure out how much money we can exactly win. You can probably see it on the screen right here. I'll put that up post editing. You can see how much money we're winning with $100. But let's get into our picks now, because that's the most exciting part of this. It's the part that's the toughest for us all. Final 4 picks, championship picks. Who is cutting down the nets at the end of the season? And Matt, I want to start with you. Start us off with your Final 4 and your championship pick.
Okay. I know already Spencer is specifically Spencer, I know is going to immediately start shaking his head when I start talking. My Final 4, the Gonzaga Bulldogs, the Kentucky Wildcats, Villanova, and the Wisconsin Badgers. And in the championship, Villanova Wildcats take down Gonzaga by a score of 75-72.
Interesting. So Villanova cuts down the nets once again. Spencer, what are your picks?
All right. My Final 4 is going to be Gonzaga, because that's what happens every year. Kansas. Listen, what kind of fan would I be if I didn't put my own team in there, right? Shout out JMO.
Right.
Villanova and Baylor. I think everyone is overlooking just how good Baylor is. They're 1 seed for a reason. UNC this, it doesn't matter. My championship game is going to see Gonzaga prevail over Villanova, 81-69 on that side. Kansas just can't figure out Villanova for the life of them. Jay Wright is 25 times the coach that Bill Self is, coming from a diehard Kansas fan. So Matt, I like your championship game, but I'm going to have to flip them a little bit.
Tobin, what about you?
I like a Final 4 rematch in the Final 4 from Gonzaga and UCLA. I think both these teams always peak this time of year. And as Spencer said, Gonzaga just kind of makes it at this point. They don't win it all, but they always make it pretty far. So I like that on the left. And on the right side of the bracket, I'm big on Kansas and Villanova. I think that's another Final 4 matchup from just a few years ago, and Villanova won by a couple of points, we'll say. But I like Kansas beating Villanova there, getting revenge. And I think Kansas is going to beat Gonzaga in the national championship for the first win in 14 years, I believe.
What about you, Mr. Morris?
Well, you said before these, I know we all had a tough time putting together these Final 4 picks. I didn't, because I'm 100% sure that this is going to be the Final 4 right here. I got Gonzaga, Purdue. Shout out Spencer. Got to pick your own team. My quick thing with Purdue is picking from my heart, right? When they eventually do make the Final 4, like 60 years from now, like, it would be more depressing than anything to not pick them to get there. So the logic is I have to do it every year until they do, even if it potentially won't be until 60 years from now. The logic side of it is this team has proven they can beat anybody, even if they've looked like anything but an elite team in the past couple weeks. So, I think they could get past Kentucky, and I think Baylor will get taken care of. Past that, I've got Illinois, which is, I teased a little bit earlier, and then I've got Auburn. I think Illinois creates a lot of really tough matchups for everybody that they play. That's not a hot take with Kofi Coburn. And then I got Gonzaga over Illinois in the national championship, 83-71. The Zags finally get over the hump and do it.
All right, so we got a couple Gonzaga champions out here. I'm taking a different route, and I haven't heard my teams very much out of you guys. So either I'm going to do really well, or you guys know much more than I do, and I'll just look like a complete idiot out here. First Final 4 team, the Duke Blue Devils, because you're crazy to think of Coach K as not getting to the Final 4 in his final season with Duke. Then I've got Kentucky. Matt, I think we agree there. Kentucky, they're a very good team. Spencer, you as well know that I'm very high on the Wildcats this season. Oscar Tshiebwe, my first pick in the fantasy draft. Arizona, coming out of the South region, led by Benedict Mathurin, of course. And then out of that region where Kansas is the 1 seed, they will not be coming out. It'll be the Iowa Hawkeyes. Matt, you mentioned it earlier, the hottest team in college basketball right now. I think Iowa, they let me down last year when they had Luka Garza. I think this year they have enough talent led by Keegan Murray to get to the Final Four, but they will lose to Arizona. Arizona will face Duke in the national championship, and the Wildcats under Tommy Lloyd will cut down the nets 75-71 and win a championship after last year not being allowed to play in the tournament. So that will wrap up everything here in the Nick Zelaya Show March Madness special. Thank you to all you gentlemen for joining me here on the show. Enjoy all the action, and we'll see you next year.